So we are at Hale Beach today, Hale Beach in Cornwall, and I'm right by some rocks at the moment. Behind me, I don't know if you can hear, is a bit of a waterfall that's going off. Now, I was thinking about some examples of using frameworks that I've had in the past, thinking back to that using a framework or not talk that I gave at PHP Southwest on April the 11th. I have a framework, I have a website, a project that I built a while ago. It's a legacy application, and perhaps I would be doing it differently if I took on the project again. So I thought I would just talk about that in this video. So the application uses the old Symfony framework. I think it's version 1.2 or 1.4, I'm not too sure, I can't remember at the moment which one it is. It's a very simple application. It is a website that literally just has a contact form. There is a couple of pages on there. There's a couple of events as well. It also has a content management system, but it's extremely simple. And the client hasn't really done any work on the website for a while. It hasn't really been updated apart from the events section. And I used that project as a means of learning Symfony. So we're talking, I don't know, half a decade ago, that kind of thing. So pretty long. Now the client, as I've mentioned, hasn't really done any changes, hasn't really requested for any changes. There might have been some styling changes, but nothing fundamentally different. The thing is, though, because it's working on a legacy framework using a legacy version, it means that I'm kind of stuck on that hosting provider with a legacy version of PHP. Now, I've got other websites on that server as well, which means that they need to use that version of PHP. I don't manage that server, there's no Docker enabled on that server, so I can't just have different websites running different versions of PHP and so forth. So anything now I put on that server has to be legacy, which means that I'm, stuck, if you will, unless I was to upgrade that website. And I would probably have to rewrite it in either the latest version of Symfony or perhaps another framework, or just write my own, roll my own, because like I said, it is a very basic website. Now I can't really go any further here because the water is getting in the way, so I'll just continue up here. And this really is an example of a web developer who latches onto the idea of using a framework to build a project without thinking about the future implications of using that framework. What I should have done is I should have asked the client what features they're going to have within the next few years, and whether or not using a framework such as Symfony, I believe it was 1.2 or 1.4, would have worked well for that. Also, what I should have done is I should have been aware that Symfony 2 would be a complete rewrite, because I can't upgrade a Symfony 1 project to a Symfony 2 project without basically rewriting the whole thing. And even though the website is really small, that is a tremendous amount of work. And it's work that the client doesn't really care about, to be honest. And I may be forced to upgrade this website if, for instance, the hosting provider that I don't particularly manage decides one day to upgrade their systems, decides to not support that version of PHP that I've got running, decides to not support the extensions that are required for that legacy system. And that is completely out of my hands. Of course, there is also the fear of a security breach using that legacy software, because you would want to have things updated as frequently as possible with the security patches and so forth. Now, Symfony, like all frameworks, do have security vulnerabilities, and they do get found out along the way. Now, I know that framework, that project, is not being supported for security patches, because Symfony 1 is a legacy application. Now, because the website is such a small website, that doesn't particularly worry me so much, because there isn't any kind of login or user management. There is, however, a content management system that the client uses to update the events and so forth, and it would be embarrassing if that was breached in some kind of manner. Of course, when I started building the application using that legacy version of Symfony, I knew that it would be developed very quickly because it's using a framework. Of course, what I didn't anticipate is the thoughts that I've got now, that was probably not a wise solution. What I should have done is I should have read the roadmap for Symfony to see if the roadmap was going to allow for future upgrades for this project. And of course, Symfony 1 at that time was being replaced with Symfony 2. That should have been the warning sign for me. Thanks for watching. Happy coding. I'll see you again next time. Cheers. Bye.